You know, part of me definitely wants to see Tord versus Azul in loser semis.
That would be the match, Chip. I would be looking forward to that. That would be such a awesome match to watch. But if Tord wants to get to that semifinals match, or if Kevin wants to advance to the next round, we are going to have to see them get through each other. It's going to be a good one for you all. Let's go ahead and jump into it. This is a big time match for both of these players here, as we'll see what the opening coin flip is. This is pretty relevant, right? Both players may want to go their own route. We could see Tord opt to go first. It looks like Tord will win the coin flip. Going to go ahead and choose to start things off. It looks like deciding yes is going to go ahead and actually, yeah, start things out going first. So Kevin will be going second. This hand is looking pretty solid, though. Does have the ability to maybe go for something like a beat catch to start things out. Could also go ahead and get something like that Victini VMAX. Spreading Flames is also a very solid attack, but it's going to be up to Kevin. Has so many options in this sort of Victini VMAX Fire Toolbox X-style deck. Welder's such a powerful supporter card in these fire-based decks. Tord's going to go ahead and start things off with that Minccino in the active. Again, has plenty of cards to play. We've seen him maneuver through these turns expertly, Chip. Is there anything really Kevin can do on this starting turn to put himself in a solid position? Do we think going for something like a research is good? Would you like to see him dig through the deck? There's plenty of options, Chip. What do you think is the best route of play?
Yeah, well, based on this hand, you're probably just going to have to go with the research. You can go ahead and communication for the Victini V, get an energy attachment there. I think normally when starting the Cramorant, it can be very good to go with a very early spit shot. You know, maybe try to take out some of these Mincinos before they become Chinchinos, try to limit towards draw in the mid to late game. I think that could be really, really strong of an option, but not something Kevin's really going to be able to do. Not really even one card he could top deck to dig for that play. I guess you top deck Giant Hearth, you could dig for it, but I don't think it's necessarily worth it. I think we're probably just going to have to see Kevin going for the Victini V attached to it and go from there.
Yeah, an interesting thing to note, Tord could prioritize getting Mew down in this matchup. Bench Barrier is a great ability against Pokemon like Cramorant V. Obviously, we have talked about its usage in the matchup against Urshifu VMAX, but in this match too, protecting your bench, protecting your attackers, protecting all of your Pokemon in general is just a great ability to have, as we do see a very solid hand here from Tord. Has the Snorlax off the quick ball, double Minccino down, and we are going to see the Gourmandize draw 4 fresh cards for Tord. Is able to get some things down, but an important thing to note, got no Urshifu V down that turn.
Yeah, no Urshifu V, so I definitely feel really solid for Kevin now being able to just go get a Victini V. I mean, this is what you want to do as Kevin's deck. You want to get an energy onto Victini V, and then on turn 2, find the VMAX, another energy, and Boss's Orders, and try to target down your opponent's Pokemon V. Also, Kevin, playing that one copy of Volcanion, that definitely could be a huge piece here. Totally forgot that that was even in this deck list, and that is a huge piece, can accelerate 3 energies out of the deck, since this is Kevin's first turn going second.
Absolutely. That Flare Starter attack, letting you get 3 fire energy out of the deck if you are going second. And it looks like eyeing that up could be a good grab at this point. Looks like all Welder are in deck, none of them prized. It's got to feel good if you're Kevin playing in such an important match here. Again, the winner of this match securing a trip to a future international championships when we do get events coming up in the future. It looks like is going to go ahead and commit to this strategy here of utilizing Flare Starter. Really values that in this match, and we'll be able to also follow things up with a Marnie. What a solid top deck there from Kevin. We'll be able to pretty much negate Tord's Gourmandize from the turn. Is going to give Tord 4 cards from the top of the deck here, as Kevin really not finding too much there. I mean, has Kricketune, so exciting stage could draw 2 cards here. We could also see Giant Hearth and a card out of the hand. So there are a bunch of options. Could go ahead and retreat into that Kricketune. Does have a switch in hand, so I think we are going to see that from Kevin. There's the retreat. Exciting stage, going to draw 2 cards. Needs to find a Pokemon really to accelerate those energies onto, but there's nothing really there. So Kevin is going to be forced to utilize Flare Starter to throw some energies onto this Cramorant, but looking at his hand, he may have to rely off his exciting stage for the following turn.
Yeah, really unfortunate and awkward draws there for Kevin. I really would have, I think, liked to have seen the research. I know it's so tempting when your opponent has like a 7-card hand to just go ahead and Marnie, but with this fire deck, you really, whenever you're going first, want to get great value. Excuse me, when you're going second, you know, on your first turn of attacking, want to get great value from Flare starters. So I think getting down a Victini and getting a couple energies on that, and then, you know, something else like, you know, second Victini, Heatran, Reshiram, and Charizard, any of those Pokemon are potential great options to just accelerate more and more energy too.
Yeah, it looks like Pokemon Communications will be able to grab any Pokemon out of the deck for Tord. Has plenty of options. May want to start establishing those Chinchinos to draw some more cards out of the deck. Definitely could see him going ahead and grabbing a Rapid Strike Urshifu, but it looks like the hand is pretty poor if we see something like this. The Dene come down. It looks like we are actually going to see the scoop up net from Tord is going to re-bench that Snorlax. Just going to give him more options. And there we see the Dene is going to go ahead and discard that Marnie. Notice that Kevin didn't really have the solid hand. Wasn't able to play much from that hand. So smartly going to go ahead and say, it hurts to bench the Dene here, right? You really don't want to bench the Dene, especially when you're staring down a Cramorant the following turn, but really prioritizes not allowing Kevin to have even more options the following turn.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if we see Tord go with a capture energy here, I'd be really interested to see what he eyes up. Is it going to be the Mew or is it going to be the Urshifu? But doesn't even have to find the capture energy, just has the Mew in hand right away. That is going to keep this Dedenne GX safe on the bench.
Yeah, and I think we may see something like a Gormandize Smart of Tord is going to utilize that Giant Hearth to draw an extra card off of Gormandize. Obviously, he doesn't have any fire energy in his deck, but Giant Hearth can be utilized by any player and requires you to discard a card. And since your deck is private knowledge, you can utilize that even if you have no fire energy in deck. For anyone wondering, why can Tord use it? He's not playing any fire energy in deck. That is the ruling on it. As we see, Kevin is also going to utilize that Giant Hearth to draw 3 cards off Exciting Stage. Let's see what he's able to grind. Finds the Crobat. That is an excellent draw. But again, there's not really anything great to switch into. High Heat Blast is not dealing enough damage to take a knockout. Kevin has already retreated for the turn. So this is where things get tricky. Crobat can draw you an extra card, I guess, if you play the switch, but it just doesn't feel great. But it looks like Kevin is going to go ahead and go for that. There is the Crobat, going to draw 4 fresh cards. And what a draw off there. Finds the Welder, finds Victini, finds 2 energy. That may have been the best, I guess, 4 cards that Kevin could even draw in that case.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even finding like a Boss's Orders could have been solid there because you can always retreat this Cramorant. I believe did play a switch to start the turn.
Oh, he did play another one. Okay.
Yeah, could go ahead and retreat into the Volcanion and target down either the Mew or one of these Minchinos, but able to find the Welder. And, you know, it doesn't feel great to spit shot this Snorlax, but it might need to be the play you go for. You also alternatively could go for a Beak Catch to try to set up a Boss's Orders play, and I don't necessarily hate that line either.
Yeah, the big thing to note toward playing some of those revenge mechanic cards like that Karate Belt, it feels really bad to take a knockout on Snorlax, right? You open up the bench space Snorlax has gotten its use in. It's
and you're discarding 3 energies to do it as well.
Yeah, and you'd have to discard 3 energy. We know Kevin is playing some cool cards in this deck, is playing 1 copy of Fire Crystal, a lot less than we've seen other Fire Toolbox decks play necessarily. Another interesting thing to note here that could come in useful later on in the game is playing that Wondrous Labyrinth of Prism Star with no real Fairy Pokemon in the format. Not playing it because he's playing Fairy Pokemon, playing it because it makes all Pokemon in play's attack costs 1 colorless more. So it can be really good at slowing Tord down. Tord can put together those combination of cards like things such as the Karate Belt in combination with that Rapid Strike energy. Can also put together things like the Karate Belt maybe in combination with the Capture energy and other fighting energy. So that could be a card to keep your eye on, Chip, late in the game, especially in combination with something like that 1 reset stamp that Kevin is playing.
Yeah, definitely. Could be huge for sure. And we see Kevin going to go ahead and get the Reshiram and Charizard as well. Was eyeing up the Mewtwo, but has the Quick Ball in hand. So we could definitely see that be an option to take a quick, easy knockout onto a Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX if that is something Tord wants to go with. I mean, we've seen Tord play this deck out plenty of times at this point. We know that he rarely, if ever, wants to be the person taking the first prize. Loves playing from behind, spreading damage with that Rapid Strike energy with the Karate Belt. So yeah, we'll see how Tord navigates this turn. Does get things started by getting the first Chinchino in play, and we'll probably see the first of many make-dos here.
Yeah, and Pokemon Communications can grab that VMAX out of the deck if Tord chooses to. Could also grab the second Chinchino out as well. So Tord, again, having plenty of options. Pokemon Communications, a great support search option to find those Pokemon out of the deck. There is the VMAX. Another thing to note, Chip, Tord is playing no stadium cards in this list, and no ways to remove stadium cards.
Right.
So that could make something like that Wondrous Prism Star even more useful, but more important, it allows Kevin to play a little bit safer in this case. However, Marty is going to put a halt in Kevin's plans, but will guarantee him at least the Welder this turn with something like that Giant Hearth being in play. That is going to allow Kevin to execute a strategy a lot easier, especially having consistent access to fire energy throughout the game. As we see the second Chinchino come down into play, it's going to allow Tord to make do even more. He's going to go ahead and get rid of that Giratina. Not very useful in this matchup when your opponent is playing all basic energy, but we did see it put in work in the matchup against Eternatus with the weak guard energy. So Tord, gonna go ahead and say goodbye to it for now. You've done your job. You can go ahead and take a little break.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we see Kevin here, a lot of energy in play. Definitely what you want to see when you're playing Heatran GX in your list. So, I mean, it's definitely a scary situation for Tord if Tord ever decided to attack with the Urshifu here. It's very easy for Kevin to just go ahead and find that Heatran GX. We see the Quick Ball in hand. We see the Welder as well. Could definitely take a quick knockout there. So we'll see how Tord wants to navigate things here. Is he going to be content playing things a little bit slower? I think with this communication, there's nothing you really want here, so it might just be putting a card back into the deck here so that you can draw a couple extra cards off of the Gormandize.
Yeah, it feels very bad to throw this Urshifu up to pretty much set math up to 2-hit KO this Cramorant in the active. On top of that, yeah, I mean, I think Tord really wants Kevin to take this prize card on Snorlax. He wants that extra bench space to utilize something like that second Urshifu VMAX. The problem is there's nothing Tord can really take off the board. Doesn't want to take away that draw engine. You know he loves Chinchino. He loves drawing cards to the deck. Mew obviously putting in work. Doesn't want Kevin to be able to take easy prize cards with something like the Spit Shot. So I think Tord is just going to take the turn to thin out this hand and utilize Gormandize drawing 4 cards. I feel like that's the most common amount of cards we see Tord draw with Gormandize. Just the way this deck plays out as Crobat V off the top of the deck has a few options. Quick Ball could thin it out. I wouldn't hate seeing Kevin thin this hand out to maybe 0. Could go ahead and Quick Ball away the Mew in combination with something else. But Mew, again, such a powerful card in this matchup. So I think he's going to have to be forced to actually get rid of this Crobat. Having no fire energy left in the deck with Giant Hearth, had to get rid of a lot. And I don't know if I saw Fire Crystal in there, Chip. Maybe it's
I didn't notice it. Yeah, it definitely seems like that's something that Kevin's going to have to be digging for off of the prize cards here. You've got some pretty decent options here as Kevin, though. You can go ahead and retreat and then play the escape rope, and then, you know, whatever your opponent sends up, you can get a knockout either with the Victini or potentially with the Volcanion or potentially with the Cramorant. So I think that's what I'd really like to see here. Retreat this Cramorant V, maybe just into the Cricketune for the turn. Mew definitely coming down seems super solid, and then just kind of force your opponent to determine what the prizes are going to be. But actually, we're going to see Kevin take a different route, go with the Spreading Flames. I like this as well. I mean, you kind of, I think at this point, you've kind of figured out Tord likes to play things a little bit slower, and maybe just setting up a big Victini V. What do you think of this, Ethan? Could we see just a big energy burst to try to sweep through this game?
That would be great. I love to see it. It's a little hard. Tord is a very smart player, can play around that by discarding his own energy off of something like G-Max Drive and Flow. I think it's important that Kevin was able to get the Mew down there. Will protect him from taking bench damage. Another interesting thing to note is this could also play into a play like Wondrous Labyrinth Prism Star. I know I keep talking about it, but we haven't seen it so far get played down, and it's very useful against this deck that wants to put together perfect energy math, right? Wants to utilize the exact 3 energy with the double energy to utilize the G-Max Drive and Flow. Wants to utilize the 1 fighting energy to utilize that Gale Thrust. So it really depends here. But again, Kevin has a lot of outs, is going to need to find some prize cards quickly, though. So I think with this hand, interesting choice. I don't think utilize Exciting Stage last turn. Could have also maybe retreated and actually, I think his hand was full. The Cricketune could not have gone to the active, so pardon me on that. It looks like we are going to see some make-it-dos from Chinchino. Tord is just getting rid of those pieces. He doesn't want on the deck, right? We saw him get rid of the Giratina, now another Minccino, and there's the Bird Keeper, which will go ahead and draw Tord even more cards. There's already 13 cards left in this deck, Chip, and no one's taken a prize card yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see Tord kind of change the pace here. We haven't seen Tord be the first one to attack. Maybe now is the time we'll finally start to see Tord put on a little pressure, and it looks like that is going to be the case. Gale Thrust here, dealing 150 damage, wants to start applying the pressure and kind of force Kevin to do something.
Yeah, and this is smart from Kevin, throwing all those energies onto the active. I think we're just going to go ahead and see this quick ball. Discard that Mars Shadow. It will allow Kevin to draw 1 card off Exciting Stage. Make that 2 is actually going to go ahead and discard Welder. Not something we see a lot, but we know Kevin has no more fire energy in deck. Finds a Professor's Research off of those 2 cards. Big time draw here for Kevin, as also has the escape rope. So this could put Tord in an awkward spot. If you promote this to Dene, then the Cramorant can take a knockout. If you promote maybe this Mew or this Chinchino, then Volcanion can take a knockout. So Tord has definitely got to think about what to bring up with escape rope here.
Yeah, and I like this from Kevin. I mean, there's really no great option from Tord of what to send up. And this is why Escape Rope is so strong in so many decks, but definitely in Victini as well, because it gives you so many options of what to, you force your opponent to kind of be in these awkward situations. As we do see that Wonder Labyrinth doesn't want to put that in play yet. Still want to Spit Shot this turn, take this knockout on Dene for 2 prizes, but that is something I think could be a really key card. You've talked about it a couple times, Ethan, and I think there's a good reason for that. I think we'll definitely see that come into play.
I need to preach it. I love seeing Wondrous Labyrinth Prism Star. It's such a cool design card, right? It hurts both players in this case, but it could be more beneficial for Kevin, especially when you see this Victini V have so many energy on it. And I think there's positive and negatives to playing the escape rope there. You do get to take an easy 2 prize cards, but the thing on the other side of hand is you don't get to apply any damage or pressure necessarily to these Urshifu VMAXs, and the more time you give them, the harder it can be. We do see no Fire Crystal off the prizes, so it is in those last 4 prize cards here before Kevin does find the Boss's Orders off the prizes. That could be a big card here. If Kevin decides to go for a route to maybe go for a Victini VMAX, could take an easy knockout on this Urshifu V, but I would not be surprised if we see Tord find that Urshifu VMAX in deck. I believe still has 2 copies of it left, and we know Tord is already through so much of the deck. 10 cards now. That will be at least 8 by the end of this turn because of that second make do. The first one will go ahead and get rid of Capture Energy. Again, cards we really don't want to see. And this is where Mewtwo really shines, Chip. It could actually perfectly synergize with the Chinchino. Use my report to put that boss on top, and then this make 2 will guarantee draw into it, getting rid of the quick ball. We could see this Boss's Orders target down the Mew. It could also target down something like this Victini. We do also see the level ball get played. Again, Tord sequencing this perfectly. He knows how to play this deck, has put in the time behind it, even with it being such a new concept. We haven't really seen this Chinchino engine paired along with anything else. I think we saw it maybe early on in the format. The last deck I really feel like I've seen this shine and has been Control and Mill, when Mill was a deck at the beginning of the Sword and Shield era, as we actually see the second energy come down. So I think this is going to target down the Victini here. It's going to allow Tord to take a knockout in combination with a reset stamp. Is going to put Kevin down to a much smaller hand size, and not the best cards. I mean, has Boss's Orders, but you're having all your energy get wiped here with this Gale Thrust. What do you think? Do you think Kevin has any way to respond from this, or do you think this is just too much pressure from Tord?
I mean, this is almost game. Kevin has 10 energies in the list. There are now 7 in the discard pile and 2 on the Volcanion. You don't have the Fire Crystal, it's in the prizes, and that last copy of Fire Energy is also in the prizes. So, I mean, Kevin's only real option here is going to be Boss's Orders. Oh, you don't even do enough damage with the Volcanion. You're only doing 50, right? So you can't even knock out a Chinchino or even a 60 HP Mew. And Kevin's going to go ahead and scoop that one up and say, I'm going to go first in game 2, and we'll have to go back to the drawing board. Kevin will need to win 2 games here in order to move on to the loser semifinals.
Yeah, Kevin is definitely on the back foot. As you said, Chip, having no energy in deck, you need energy to attack in the Pokemon trading card game. It feels really bad to not have any energy left in deck. I think he's definitely gonna have to make some adjustments, Chip. One of them, as we talked about, having fire energy in deck. You need to be able to attack in order to stay in the game. Is there anything else Kevin should maybe sequence or put pressure on early in the game that could put him in an excellent spot?
Maybe Kevin put a little too much energy in play too quickly and just like put all his eggs kind of in one basket. I think at that point, whenever you take the knockout with Spit Shot, you just kind of know there's this Victini with 150 damage on it on the bench. It's got basically all of your remaining energy, right? Because the 2 on the Volcanion are going to be pretty useless. You know that if that gets knocked out, the game is pretty much going to be over, and that's exactly what we saw happen. Kevin unable to do anything, just had to scoop it up. So Kevin will be going first, which is huge. So if Kevin can find the Victini V, get an energy attached to it, and then on turn 2 find the VMAX as well as a Boss's Orders and start targeting those Rapid Strike Urshifu Vs super quickly, I mean, that's what this Victini deck loves to do. So if Kevin can make that happen, it'll be tough for Tord to keep up.
Yeah, I think that may be the key in this matchup. Early pressure. We've talked about it a lot throughout this tournament. It is a big part of the metagame right now. Let's go ahead and get into this crucial game number 2 between both these players. Again, the winner of this set will get a free trip to an upcoming international championship, as it looks like Kevin will be going ahead and starting things off, going first. Tord will be going second in this match. So, I mean, on the back foot again, but can utilize some of those supporter cards like the Bird Keeper, like Marnie. So, not out of it. We really can't stress it enough. Tord, whatever position he's put in, he's going to make the most out of it.
Oh, definitely. You can never count Tord out. That is for sure. As we see kind of a little bit of an awkward start here for Kevin. Just going to have to go ahead and Dede change. A lot of pretty good cards away. Gets rid of the Fire Crystal. Gets rid of a Welder and does not find a Victini V.
Oh my, finds nothing off of this. You're going to be down 2 Welder if you Dede change the following turn. Obviously, the Dede having a limit, you can only utilize 1 Dede change per turn is actually going to go ahead. I like this. Giant Heart the Way and Energy. That's 1 more card you can go ahead and get rid of, and we're actually going to see Kevin thin this hand down.
1 card, 1 time. 1 card, 1 time.
Baby. Let's see it. Oh. Nope. It would have been great to see that. I actually would have put Kevin in the all right spot. Could have attached to a Victini if he found one there, and then the Dene the following turn to put him in a solid spot. We'll still get energy on Kricketune, so it will be a free pivoter the following turn, right? Only has a 1 retreat cost, so can utilize that to discard energy. So we're going to start things off with a great card. A lot of people wondering, I guess, why play so many copies of Capture Energy, but we see it is crucial in Tord's deck to get these Pokemon on the bench set up. And at the end of the day, it can still pair really well with that Rapid Strike energy.
Yeah, I mean, it really is truly reminiscent of that old Zoroark Golisopod deck that Tord played. I mean, that deck played the 4 copies of Bridget. We've got the 4 Capture Energies in here. It really is just a super similar parallel. And, Tord took that tournament by storm, that EUIC that year, and definitely feels like Tord is taking this one by storm. Could we see the repeat, Tord taking it all the way to the finals potentially?
Yeah, improvise, adapt, and overcome. That's what matters when you do deck building, right? You have to continuously adjust to the changing card pool, the changing meta, and Tord is a master of that. His lists are a thing to fathom. You kind of take a look at them sometimes, and you wonder why they're like this, but when you see them in action, you really just say, This is peak right here. This is peak deck building, as Tord is able to get the Bird Keeper off and is able to get a Stellar Wish Pokemon Communications. Again, such a powerful card. Will be able to throw a Pokemon back into the deck and find another one. This is a great card to throw things up and find those key Pokemon out of the deck. Here we go. We also see the Air Balloon will come down onto that bench Urshifu V. Tord has a very sizable hand and plenty of things to work with, as we're actually going to see this Jirachi go ahead and do it again. Stellar Wish a second time. That's what's super cool about all the pivoting cards Tord plays in this deck. You can utilize that 1 copy of Jirachi. I feel like all of these 1-ofs in the deck that Tord is playing, he's utilizing them to the best of the ability. 1 Jirachi, 1 Giratina, a single copy of Mew, a single copy of Mewtwo, Snorlax. It's crazy, Chip. He is just utilizing every single card. No card is going to waste in this deck.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually really interesting. We do see that 1 copy of Jirachi. I love this deck building choice from Tord. It is just such a solid 1-of piece. I mean, for as long as Jirachi has been around, it's pretty much been a 3 or 4 of in most people's decks if they are choosing to go with that engine. But Tord just kind of keeping it as a 1-of option. It does work super well, of course, with Scoop Up Net, the air balloons, all that stuff. And kind of reminiscent of the old days, the original Jirachi with the Wishing Star ability, Poke Power from back in EX Deoxys. I mean, very similar, ability / Poke Power, and, paying off big for Tord, just having that 1 copy being something that he can utilize.
Man, you're taking me back. That's probably before I was walking, man. All the way back to the Pokemon trading card game. Jeez, man. All right, we will see the Welder on to Kricketune. Again, we've seen a cast of characters that Welder has thrown energies onto. Kricketune is the latest to join the team, and this is actually smart. I mean, you can utilize something like the Burning Train, the Burning Road, right? That allows you to put the energies off of Heatran from Pokemon onto it. So we are going to actually see the exciting stage. It's going to go ahead and draw an extra card of the best here, right? Boss's Order, something you want to draw into when you have Pokemon to really apply pressure onto at this point. Marshadow is probably a wasted bed space at this point too. It feels really bad to have your bench be clogged up by all these support Pokemon that you've had to bench down early to try to get your strategy going, as there is a Dead-Eye change. This does find a pretty nice hand of cards, has the Victini, will be able to at least take a knockout onto this Heatran. There we go ahead and see the retreat and move in the energy. Such a cool ability. You love to see these, again, similar to Tapu Koko GX and a lot of abilities we've seen throughout the time of the Pokemon trading card game, as Steaming Stomp will deal 260 damage to poor little Jirachi and take the first prizes of game number 2.
Yep, and this is, kind of the situation Tord does not mind finding himself in. I mean, he's only got 4 cards, but he's got 2 Minchinos in play, ready to become Chinchino, as we see Chinchino number 1, Chinchino number 2. We'll certainly see many make-dos here. And we'll have to see if Tord is able to make do with whatever cards he's given off of this. Not able to knock out the Heatran quite yet, but can throw some solid damage into play. And of course, with Kevin's Kevin's bench pretty clogged up, not going to be able to bench that Mew unless he utilizes Marshadow to discard his own Stadium.
And so something I want to point out here, that was an interesting choice from Tord. Utilized the Giant Hearth to discard this Cheryl, a card that could be pretty useful in this matchup, maybe wanting to have easy access to it with something like the Mewtwo Mind Report later on in the game. So again, Tord making plays that I have to just stop and think about and say, well, why did he use Giant Hearth there? And I'm like, okay, that makes sense then. But there we actually see the Mewtwo go back into the deck with Pokemon Communication. We'll find that Urshifu VMAX. Tord has not utilized, I believe has utilized 1 make-do so far, so still has the ability to do that again, make that 2 Pokemon Communication. A whole party of throwing Pokemon in and out of the deck here. We'll throw that Mew back in the deck. Crimmerin isn't really a threat at this point. Kevin has, I guess, a way to get Marshadow out of play at the cost of discarding his own Giant Hearth, but is actually going to prioritize the Dene of the Own, and this could be a great turn for Tord. There is no Mew in play. Chip, I think we're going to see a G-Max Rapid Flow deal a whole bunch of damage to some pretty important Pokemon.
Yeah, and we'll have to see how Tord sets the damage up. Very commonly in this spot, we've seen Tord play it slow, not take knockouts so that he can continue to utilize Karate Belt to pull off back-to-back G-Max Rapid Flows. But, Kevin can always take this one prize Pokemon out of play in that Marshadow. So, I mean, things are set up for Tord to just be able to go, knock out Heatran and then knock out 2 Dedenne GX. So that might be the strategy we see him go for. But you also could knock out this Marshadow and then knock out 1 Victini VMAX. I feel like, as long as you can find those boss's orders, if you haven't prized too many of them, I feel pretty good about just trying to go knock out Heatran and then knock out the 2 Dedenne.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty nice strategy here, as Tord is going to go ahead and grab another Minchino. We haven't actually seen a triple trade turn yet, Chip, I believe, watching all of Tord's games. I hope we get to see it. That is such a cool ability. Again, make do, allowing you to draw through your deck, get rid of those pieces that you don't want. And Tord's got options. I cannot stress that enough. He has got plenty of options to work with. I believe his Urshifu has not yet retreated, so cannot utilize Gale Thrust to their full effect, so we're most likely going to see the G-Max Rapid Flow deal some damage across the board. I'm going to make my guesses here. I think we could see this take a knockout on the Marshadow. We are. So I like this play. Taking the knockout on the Marshadow sets up the math to get through something like this Victini VMAX, which we are likely going to see go ahead and get evolved at some point during this game.
Kevin, having kind of a rough go of things as far as the hand is concerned, does have the Welder in the discard pile, so you can always utilize Eldegoss to get that back and Welder onto the Victini V and try to get a VMAX. I think I definitely would love to see Kevin try to attack with the Victini VMAX here. The problem is you are down a ton of your switch cards at this point, so makes it a little harder to get this Heatran out of the active spot, because having this Heatran around could be really good in the late game, since it can pick up a one-hit KO on a totally clean Urshifu VMAX.
Yeah, as I see this game plan, right, where we maybe take a turn to Welder and prepare the Victini VMAX to finish off this Urshifu after something like a Steaming Stomp, the same image keeps replaying in my mind, Chip. Giant Hearth away, the Cheryl. Cheryl could be such a key card on this next turn, as we actually see Kevin is going to go for a little bit of a different route. Hot Burn GX to take the knockout onto this Dedenne, and Kevin is trying to map the prizes out to take these last final 3 prizes on this Urshifu VMAX. However, Tord, while you are losing 2 prizes this turn, you can't be too upset, right? Your clean VMAX is still in play, and you'll be able to get off even more attacks, especially being able to at least take 2 prizes, most likely, onto this Heatran GX. So we'll see what route he decides to play. There is a high chance we are going to see the third Chinchino come out. If it's not in the prizes, there is the level ball, able to search out any Pokemon with 90 HP left. Here it is, Chip. I'm excited for this.
Reminiscent of the triple trade days, triple make do, it seems right now for Tord. Very solid spot. And, I mean, Kevin's not totally out of it for sure, but, I mean, this is where Tord wants to be. You're down, but you're definitely not out. You've got your complete board set up pretty much. You don't have another Urshifu V, but, I mean, honestly, at this point, do you even really need another VMAX? I think that this one single VMAX could definitely carry you the distance.
I think Tord would rather save those bench spots for something like that. Mewtwo could also play something else down, right? He is only playing a 3-3 line of that Minccino and Chinchino. Could even utilize something like Galarian Zigzagoon even later. So there are a ton of options, right? He has plenty of options to play with. I mean, there's nothing else. A lot of those key support Pokemon or in other matchups, not in this matchup, have already been discarded. You don't really need too many support Pokemon in this matchup. The only one that really sticks out is something like that Mew, right? Because you can protect your bench against something like the Spit Shot. As I'm also looking over at his list, just some interesting things to note as Tord is making decisions. I think he's the only list in this event that opted to not play Jirachi GX. We've seen a lot of these lists opt to play that to have some support, right, against these Psychic type Pokemon that we have in the format right now, such as Mewtwo and Mew. But interestingly enough, is playing a little bit riskier, and it's paid out for him so far, has not had to utilize that. It's just one extra spot Tord can use for something like these Tech 1-of Pokemon, like the Mewtwo, like the Jirachi 1-of, the Snorlax. It's super cool to see. As we see, Tord is going to go ahead and get rid of those pieces not necessary. There is the Rapid Strike energy. We see the Capture energy going to discard pile. Tord, again, only having 15 cards left in deck, able to just maneuver through this so well. Needs to find the pivot out to get this Chinchino out of the active. But again, Chip, it's just feeling like Tord's game over again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Tord just needing a switch card at this point can take these two prizes. You will be tied, so no more Karate Belt options for you. But, you know, if your opponent is taking prizes, that's something they'll be able to do. We do see the Bird Keeper will draw 3 cards and also get that switch effect, so we can get the full damage output of the Gale Thrust. And, yeah, it does appear that we will see Tord go ahead and tie the game up at 3-3 prizes apiece.
Yeah, such a great play. Bird Keeper, a great card in this deck to draw more cards and put those Pokemon you want in the active spot. As we do see another Urshifu V come down. This is good, right? You can get another attacker set up in case you need to retreat into another attacker if your Urshifu VMAX gets heavily damaged. So this just opens up a lot of plays for Tord, and you really don't need to commit the bench spots to anything. And your Victini VMAX on your opponent's side isn't threatening anything, right? Because you cannot Welter and Boss the same turn. Tord has options. It looks like is going to go ahead for something like a Gale Thrust this turn. I don't know how many Make Do's have been used. I think at least 2 have. So it looks like all 3 with Gale Thrust going to go ahead and take the knockout. Tord's going to go down to 3 prizes. It is getting close. The game is tied up at 3 apiece. Tord is in a pretty dominant spot, I have to say, a little bit better than Kevin, especially when it comes to the board. As a quick ball top deck here is all right, but you may have to commit something like the Eldegoss here, or we are going to see this hand get thinned out for something like Exciting Stage to draw back up to 4 cards.
And we're actually going to see the Mewtwo and Mew come down. Definitely a potential option. Can't attack this turn, so that's why we're not seeing Kevin, you know, just welder a bunch of energies to it. And we're actually going to just see the Marnie, and this is actually pretty solid for Kevin. Going to go ahead and use the Spreading Flames as well as Disrupt Tord at the same time and try to just load up this Mewtwo and try to let that be the thing that takes the last few prize cards. Now, Tord does have an answer to this via the Galarian Zigzagoon and the Mimikyu from Cosmic Eclipse in the list. I'm not sure if either of those pieces has been discarded yet, but it does involve Tord, you know, getting down the Zigzagoon and then scoop up netting into the Mimikyu. Otherwise, Kevin is going to have a pretty easy path to just take the last 3 prize cards.
Knowing Tord, I would believe they are still in the deck. He knows what he needs to do in order to deal with these Pokemon that can cause Urshifu some trouble. We are going to see the first Make Do. Get rid of that Urshifu V. Again, not needed in this case. This would be big for Tord. If you could take that threat off, I don't really see a way Kevin can deal with this. There is also the potential, for Tord to win this turn. Actually, there is not. Pardon me. I thought there was 2 prizes, or one of those were benched damage. So it looks like Tord is just going to take some time. Actually going to get rid of Quick Ball. So prioritizing some of the other cards in the hand to get this done. has a lot of options still, right? Can't stress that. We could also see something, does not need to necessarily play the Zigzagoon down. We could see something like the boss's orders come down, hit into that Mewtwo and Mew, and then play the Mimikyu out. And going back to Kevin's turn, that Pokemon has damage on it, right? It took damage from the attack, and you set up a play now where you can finish it off with a G-Max Rapid Flow. I feel like that might maybe be the best play for Tord in this situation.
Definitely. We're going to go ahead and see the energy attached. You could even just G-Max Rapid Flow here and then get the boss's orders play on the next turn. As we will see, Capture Energy does bring down the dreaded Mimikyu here. Definitely not what Kevin wanted to see. And a reset stamp to go along with it. Very, very solid. Tord can close the game out on the next turn with a boss's orders and an energy to knock out this Mewtwo, since the math lines up perfectly. 120 damage plus 150. And we're actually just going to go ahead and see the boss played this turn, and actually just retreating to the Mimikyu here. Going to go ahead and scoop up net, wants to go ahead. Okay, this is perfect. Does go ahead and get the Gale Thrust off, so he has checkmate on board pretty much. I don't think Kevin has a piece in the deck to really counteract this.
Especially with this reset stamp. I don't think there's anything that he can do. This is the exact play I was talking about, right? Puts pressure onto the Mewtwo and Mew with combination of the Mimikyu, shuts the Mewtwo and Mew off, cannot utilize that perfection ability. I think just double checking, right? I can't use attacks, right? I just wants to make sure, right? Maybe there is a slim chance something's not working as it should be in this case, as Kevin has his back up against the wall. I don't think there's anything that he can do. I guess you can retreat the Mewtwo and Mew, but at that point, it will just be knocked out by the G-Max Rapid Flow. Tord found everything he needed to. The previous turn is in an excellent position. I think just thinking through, maybe taking a turn to spreading flames onto the Victini itself. Can also utilize the Victini VMAX's spreading flames, but unless I see something, I don't think there's anything Kevin can do to prevent this game from being over the following turn. I guess you can go in and swing with this VMAX. You can thin the hand down 2 cards and go ahead and exciting stage for 1. Kevin is actually going to go ahead and exciting stage for 2. Going to put all of those cards in the hand, either back in the deck or discard pile. This will be a big exciting stage. What can Kevin find off of this? Finds the air balloon, so this will allow this Mewtwo Mew to retreat into Victini VMAX, but that's actually going to be the game here. Kevin is going to hit him with the well played. Tord has the game in hand. Will be able to utilize the G-Max Rapid Flow to take the knockout onto that bench Mewtwo Mew to secure the last 3 prizes of this game. Tord is going to secure himself a spot to a future international championships, taking a swift 2-0 victory over Kevin here. Congratulations to Tord Reklev here for becoming the next player to secure himself that spot in a future international championships, and also is going to be advanced to the next round of losers bracket. So he's not out of the tournament either. Chip can continue to advance through. What an excellent match by Tord. Again, this deck, such a cool deck to watch. It's super, super fun, and we're going to be seeing him in some more action.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, very well played by Tord. I mean, Tord also got top 4 in the very first Players' Cup, right? So at this point, Tord